Do you think that by getting national counsel or general counsels like Mr. O'Hara of the companies involved that have authority will help with this timing issue of settlements? Because sometimes that authority and the settlement input doesn't get translated down to the guys on the ground that are trying the case?
I think that's absolutely accurate. Having had some mediation training in the last year, I have learned that if you're going to settle anything, you're not going to get it done unless the people with the authority to settle are present. And a lot of time is wasted with jurors sitting around the courthouse waiting for negotiations to be concluded by people being on their cell phones, talking to a person who has to call someone else on a cell phone to get the authority to settle the case. And absolutely it would help.
I have Joe O'Hara's email and mobile phone number for all of you before you leave.
But see, I don't have his email number because they didn't have email the last time I worked with him. But the thing is that a lot of it, I think, is we as judges establishing credibility, particularly with the defense bar, because the defense bar can deep six settlement. I mean, if you're not going to make an offer, it doesn't matter how reasonable a plaintiff is. And if you are willing to make reasonable offers, then it's our job, at least I think it's my job, to try and let the plaintiffs understand that it's a good and right area with which to go. And it seems to me that if we have that credibility, then I can pick up the phone and I can call Mr. O'Hara and say, look, can you do something for me because I got this group and I really need to get it settled.
Well, I think calling is great, but there's nothing like having somebody sitting right in front of you to try to negotiate the deal. And I think it's not just negotiating that deal, but I think in New York, certainly if I can identify the defendants who are not willing to talk or who are not willing to talk until they see the jurors, I will be reaching out to national counsel and I will be inviting them to take a trip to New York.
Yeah, which is beautiful this time of year.
You like New York, right, Joe?
Judge Davidson.
Then they can take the Metroliner down to Philly.
Well, again, I sort of think no plaintiff should have to take a dime less than what they think is fair, and no plaintiff, and because of the court system. It's evaluation of the case by the plaintiff and the defendant that should drive settlements and not judicial duress. I'm sure all of you remember the Paul Newman movie, The Verdict, where the evil judge said you had your chance and you didn't take their reasonable settlement offer. You remember those scenes? Mila O'Shea played the judge in that movie. And again, my job is to call balls and strikes. It has the same effect as everywhere else. The answer to my answer to the question, how do you get cases to go to trial, is to set them earlier. If you set a case for trial in 2 years, it'll settle in a year and 362 days. If you set a case for trial in a year, it'll settle in 363 days. If you set a trial in 6 months, it'll settle in 5 months and 28 days. And it means the lawyers in Texas are doing a bunch of work to get cases ready to go quicker. Now, I do have one little advantage. I have 483 courts that I can compel to try a case whenever I tell them to. And none of you have 583 courts that are sitting. You've got one, you. I have 583 courts that I have the power to say, except if you're in a death penalty case, and you know how Texans love our death penalty, but we don't try that many of those. But unless you're in a death penalty case, you must start an asbestos case on this day. And the legislature has given a docketing priority above everything else to asbestos litigation, except for death penalty cases.
Can I comment to that?
Yeah.